Hello, this is Christy with MyScrapbookEvolution.com. Today we're going to be working with one piece of pattern paper. It has a double-sided print, and this is going to be a tip for you that will really help your budget out. There's a lot of times where we'll get a kit or a collection of pattern paper and we'll have one sheet of a print, but we like both sides of the paper. It can be hard to decide which one you want to use. But there is a way to take advantage of both sides of the print. By strategically cutting the pattern paper apart, we can move the paper around so that we can see both sides of the print. Now for this layout today, I've cut it into 3 sections. The size of those sections is going to depend upon your personal preference, maybe due to the photo size or what you're working with, or you may be cutting squares or circles or other shapes out. Now I'll be able to use this pattern as a band across the canvas. But when I've done this, I've obviously weakened the integrity of the paper. How do you keep it together? You could glue it to a full sheet of 12 by 12 cardstock, but that's not necessary to waste the full sheet of cardstock. What I'm going to do instead is use this full 12 by 12 sheet as a way to line up my paper. And then I'm going to use scraps of cardstock to reinforce the design. So what you're looking at here would be the back of what is going to be your canvas. And we're just going to cut this cardstock into longer strips. A lot of times I have this cardstock left over after I've cut down a sheet to use for mats on a photo. I'm just going to apply the adhesive, and I'm going to make sure that it stays as lined up as possible. And just apply this on the back. You want to put some close to the edges to kind of hold everything together. And then you want some in the center. So now you have your basic canvas. It may have a little bit of an uneven seam depending on how you cut it. You can add a little more reinforcement and also cover that seam by using another strip. In this case, I've taken washi tape and I've covered a strip of white cardstock, a scrap piece. This will help me see the washi tape more clearly. Sometimes on certain patterns it doesn't show up. And again, it's going to provide a little more reinforcement for the paper to hold that canvas together. It's got that a little off-centered. If you still find that the paper is very weak, you can also come back in and machine stitch or hand stitch, and that will definitely hold the paper together. There we go. No one will know that you've cut the pattern paper apart. And now you've got a basic band that you can use as a canvas or beginning structure for your layout. Now I'm working with these photos today of my husband and son together. The papers are from a Thanksgiving kit. They're very fall themed. But given the colors and the theme that I'm going to go with, I'm using gratitude as my theme. I'm thankful for the relationship that my husband and son have together. I can use this Thanksgiving fall themed paper even though these photos were taken in March. Now, my husband and son are at a video game arcade, so I'm going to add some elements in that reinforce that as well. I'm going to use this bingo card. It looks like this does not like my tape runner. So I'm going to use a little bit of glossy accents instead. Sometimes that happens, but no one will see the back of this. Just run that back on here real quick. Okay, so now we have our cross design here, and I can layer the photos on. What you'll notice is that this bingo card has a little bit of dimension to it. So it kind of raises this photo above the other. I don't want to overlap it too much because it'll bend the photo. If I did overlap it more, I would need to support this with a little chipboard there. But I can do a tiny bit of overlapping here, and it just sort of makes for a little bit of an interesting effect. You'll get the shadowing in your layout. Let the numbers show through a little here. This is a little crooked. I try to use the bingo card as a guide to keep my photos straight. I've pre-made a few of my elements to save time. I'm going to slide a tag in here underneath. Actually, let's just move this over a bit. It helps not to press the adhesive down too much, and then that way you can move items around a little bit easier. So I pre-made this envelope stuffed with tickets. Part of how I'm going to use the theme of fall with this is that I'm going to put the squirrel, and I've got this little phrase, collecting tickets like a squirrel gathering acorns. So even though this is a sticker, I had added cardstock to the back so that I can move it around on the page until I figure out exactly where I want it to go. Slide this envelope in here. So even though this is again very fall themed in the colors, by adding in the game board and the tickets here, I'm sort of also using the theme that they are playing games at an arcade. I'll just slide these in here. And I've pre-made this cluster here with the rose, and it was simply a matter of adding in a couple of die cut leaves. I've got a square strip of cardstock that was left over from another project, and I've added in a few of the stars, with some with the turquoise color that you see in the tickets here. And then that way I can kind of move this around the layout until I get an idea for where I want it to go. I think I'm going to just slide these over a bit more. so I can make room for this cluster here. There we go. Pre-making some of your elements like this, again, makes it easy for you to adjust as you're building the layout. If you don't like where something goes, if it's not working for you, you can move it around until it does. Here's another little fun cluster that I made with one of these tags, a couple of banners, and a button. Let's try it. I think it'll work right up there. And I know I want to use this best day ever phrase here, but what I'm noticing is that I don't really see the wood standing out against the background here. You don't really see it at all, so I want to add a little bit of a different color. I think I'm gonna move these just a tad. And it's really simple to color the wood. You just need a plastic plate, an ink pad, a brush, and a little bit of water. I'm just going to make my own watercolor. I'll stamp a little bit of the ink onto the paper plate, spray a little water in, swirl it around, and just like that I've got watercolor. And you may need to go over this a couple of times depending on how dark the color is. Some are going to work better than others. You could also use spray mist with this or standard watercolor. You could make a wash with some acrylic paint. But I like the ink because it's kind of like having a stain. And you don't have to make a whole lot, you just make a little bit at a time. And if you need a little more, stamp some more ink on and make a tiny bit more. Also nice because it usually doesn't take too long to dry, and I should be able to apply this to the layout pretty quickly. And if you're not sure about colors, I've actually tested it a couple of times on the back with a couple of different colors just to see what worked best against the layout. Alright, there we go. That's done. And now I can just add this in to the layout. I'm actually going to move this for a minute. I'm going to gently pull these up. I want to trap the white space there. I use glossy accents for heavy items, which may not work too well with my ATG. Glossy accents or zip dry, they both work very well. Now I'm going to lay these kind of in here to kind of meet in the spaces there. There we go. And now the layout's complete. It just needs journaling.